If you rewind like 6 years ago, I would have told you myself that Glock 9 was going to be the next big face out of Florida. Bruh straight had Kodak Black level potential, but pissed his chance down the drain. Fell off faster than Orlando Brown. Fast forward almost 10 crash dummy years later, and Glock 9 got some of the worst news of his life. He's been charged for a body, a second-degree murder charge that all stems from an incident almost half a decade ago.
18-year-old Dexter Rentz was gearing up for a college sports career.
He had signed to play college football and run track for Louisville. Now, an NBA legend is reaching out to help Rentz's grieving family.
Many people seeing this headline had no idea how this could even happen. However, many are saying several truth tellers could be to blame for giving this information to the police. At the same time, many are pointing to one infamous incident, a murder of a promising young football player, as the very cause of Glock 9 quite possibly never seeing the light of day and fresh air ever again. Man, we gotta get into the crazy beat that unfortunately might have Glock 9 fighting for his life in prison. Before we get into that, I'm gonna need you to run something for me, man. Like, comment, subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell so whenever I post, you already know what's going on. And hit that link in the description. Check out my merch. Y'all gonna see it, and let's run it up, man. Let's get into this right now. If you're a fan of Central Florida rap, there's no doubt in my mind that you've heard of Glock 9. Bro was low-key hard AF and at one time was actually my favorite artist while I was living in Florida. While his come up in the mid-2010s was catching waves, it seems like he was in fact his worst enemy. Glock 9 is very much like a lot of recent crash out rappers who made it big but quickly fall victim to trying to prove something to the world in the streets. I call it the street nigga paradox. When you get to that point of fame that Glock 9 did, is when dudes really gotta stop being in the streets for real, get out the way and just give into a facade to actually survive and make real money and not crash out. But when these rappers do that is when the fans say they're not real. This makes them go out and try to prove themselves and makes them do fried stuff, and that's exactly what happened to Glock 9. Glock 9's story is honestly one that could have been a potential miracle. Born on May 1st, 2000, Jaquavius Denard Smith, aka Glock 9, grew up in one of the straight worst areas of Orlando. Coming out of Mercy Drive, he had a sense of desperation. This had him jump off the porch at an early age, robbing cars and doing straight fried activity. Eventually though, his infamy in the city got him a name in the streets, and he started making music that got him pretty popular. Soon came his first underground hit, Crayola, which is honestly some nostalgic shit. Bruh's career made a really promising move at that point, getting 19 million views and counting. Many arrests eventually put a dent in his nationwide career, but he was still making moves in the city of Orlando, remained one of the biggest of 3 rappers in the city. However, his relationship with the other 2 would end up proving to be the very reason that he lost his freedom, which we tap into on chapter 2, AFNF, 438, and LPB. At the height of the Orlando rap scene, there were 3 rappers that came out and made the biggest wave. Glock 9, shortly followed by Hot Boy, and eventually LPB Pooty, who would come up and start making waves nationally. Glock 9 repping AFNF, all family, no friends, off Mercy. Hot Boy being from 438, based out of the Silver Star Road area of Orlando, probably the most notable person who Glock 9 had a problem with. And then LPB Pooty, who we're going to get into later, a reputable member of the LPB, is a legit part of the reason why this dude Glock 9 is posted in prison today eating sloppy joes right at this second. At first, it seems like they were all cool, with Glock 9 even being in an Orlando cypher with Pooty back in 2018. However, at a certain point, Glock 9 and AFNF began tweaking and getting into an infamous beat with 438, resulting in a dozen of shootings and innocent bystanders getting murked. At the same time, this erratic behavior called LPB to have a problem with them, and they clicked up with 438. Obviously, when tension is this high in the city, it was only a matter of time before someone gets Swiss cheese, and it seems like the domino effect started with an LPB member getting taken down, which we're getting to in chapter 3, the death of Wolf.
Show that murder suspect turned murder victim is associated with a local gang we first told you about last year. Good evening, I'm Vanessa Eccles.
And I'm Greg Wormuth. Last September, 9 Investigates uncovered court records that indicated Demetrius Cox, who was associated with the gang AFNF, shot and killed a man at an Osceola County house party. That happened
on April 14, 2020. Deputies responded to a report of shots fired at a home in the Stony Brook South Division in Davenport, Tucson. Tuesday, April 14th, 2020, but could not locate any shooting victims upon arriving to the scene. Investigators said deputies were later contacted by the Orange County Sheriff's Office in reference to a shooting victim who got dropped off at Dr. Phillips Hospital. It was determined the victim was none other than 20-year-old Wolf Luther King Luma, who was shot at a house party. Deputies initially responded to. Luma was a close friend of Hot Boy, as well as tied in with LPB and was a bona fide LPB member, so it wouldn't take long for the get back. But that whole story is a whole movie in itself. Not in a good way. AFNF member Demetrius Cox, aka Matimo, was suspected of carrying out the hit, subsequently arrested shortly after. However, shortly after being arrested for a second-degree murder, he was somehow able to bond out, which is honestly the craziest thing I've ever heard, because he was caught trying to contact witnesses, bro. Unfortunately, before he was even able to get his karma for the death of Wolf, a wild incident that would change Glokknine's life forever and take the life of a D1 athlete that's still being remembered today went down. And this is where we get into chapter 4, the body that got Glokknine locked up. On April 24th, 2020, a vigil would later be held after the funeral of Wolf Luma. Friends and family decided to do a brief candlelight vigil. People gathered and lit candles in his memory, but the cries for peace were interrupted with gunfire. Dexter Rentz Jr., 18 at the time, a graduating senior from Oakey High School, was heading to the University of Louisville to play football. Unfortunately, he would never make it. Police said they responded to the drive-by shooting in the 5100 block of Elsie Street and discovered multiple victims from the shooting. Officers said they watched 2 vehicles drive away from the area and pursued both. Rentz was found suffering from a gunshot wound in one of the cars and taken to Orlando Regional Medical Hospital. Unfortunately, he was pronounced dead at the scene, police said. In addition to Dexter Rentz, LPB Pooty and 2 others were shot in the gunfire. It's honestly crazy, man, just even thinking about that. And it's so unfortunate that this random bystander just got caught at the wrong place at the wrong time. But you're gonna see how it all ties together right now in chapter 5. So following this whole incident, there was someone else who was originally the culprit of this shooting. Honestly, it's crazy there were so many witnesses and so many people saw who did this, but nobody came forward with suspects for years. But then 4 years later from this incident, the first person to get charged for this was arrested. It was none other than Christopher Burke, an apparent associate of AFNF. Following his arrest, Glock Nine would later be charged for his murder, officially, which leaves us where we are today. Since that fateful day, these alleged shooters all faced their karma in a number of crazy ways. Matimo would later be gunned down just a couple of hours after he was released on bond from his murder investigation previously with Wolf. On the other hand, Glock Nine, even before he was facing his second-degree murder charge, was almost murked himself in a broad daylight assassination attempt at a mall in Orlando. He survived, but it seems that the point right there is when the Orlando scene was pretty much finished. Glock Nine and Hot Boy were each arrested in a large RICO indictment, and it seems that they were cooked at that point. Glock Nine lost another case that got him 7 years, and now, officially just 2 days ago, he was charged for second-degree murder. Honestly, this seems like the total product of broken homes. That's the only way I could classify why these dudes are so willing to risk it. But Glock 9, if this is true, might just be one of the most fried, crazy, mindless shooters I've ever heard. Bro's reputation throughout the city is crazy. Bro even beefed with his own family members, and part of the case that he is fighting and lost for the 7 years was shooting into the home of his cousins and family, bro. Honestly, wild. Who would have thought that someone could even be that savage, man? And it's like, I really tell you, every time I feel like this is like the street nigga conundrum, because it's like I said, a paradox for real, man. You really look at this and it's these dudes get to the point of blowing up so far into their careers and becoming a nationwide name, so they constantly feel like they need to uphold an image that they made, and when they do, they end up murking people. But then it's so backwards, because if they don't, the fans make fun of them and say that they're being soft, man. So at the end of the day, it's a lose-lose situation. That's why there's not much money in drill music. It's really not really that much money into it, because they're only investing to see you crash out, and then after that, all the money that you got probably go to your lawyer fees and stuff like that. I feel like dudes like Glock 9, dudes like Pooty right now, like they probably don't have that much money, if any. And this whole scenario with everyone else that's involved, there's a lot more people that are involved in this incident, and people are pointing fingers saying that everyone is snitching. From people saying that Pootie snitched, and that's how they were able to find Glock 9. Pootie even saying that you're not going to believe how exactly someone else snitched. Who was the person snitching? I guess he was implying that Glock 9 was the person who snitched in this. That wouldn't even make any sense. Honestly, people were trying to say that someone snitched because after this initial guy got arrested for the death of Dexter Rentz, that was immediately a couple days later that Glock 9 got arrested, you know? But at the end of the day, there probably was overwhelming evidence. I wouldn't be surprised because these dudes were so fried. They were openly beefing on IG Live, openly beefing in songs, that pretty much everyone knew what was going on. And that's just the fried stuff that's going on. You know, these rappers nowadays are not making common sense. You know, common sense is not common. They be posting it online, posting it on their phones. Granted, this was half a decade ago, but this is all still public information that's very available. And people within the city of Orlando definitely know what's going on themselves. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen to Glock 9. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets sentenced to life because bro was on a terrible, terrible path. I don't even know how bro could be in society if this is the stuff that he be doing because he be going crazy, man. Not saying that I wish jail on anyone, but if someone's just going around gunning people down, that's like some serial killer shit, man. I'm not even gonna lie. Bro's like Richard Ramirez, Osama bin Laden type vibe, man. But hey, let me know in the comments what y'all think about this whole situation. Do you think it could have been avoided? Let me know. Real say shit, you already know. Peace.